Ah, It is a new day, isn't it? It is a new day. Hey, Gwen. Hey, Beth Lane. Hey, Gail Johnson. Excuse me.
Good morning, Travis. I'm not staying. I just wanted to come on and say hello.
Hey, good to have you.
I'm,
Glad you,
I, I may lurk in the background. I'm working on a baby quilt this morning.
well, I'm glad you come in and said hello. Long time friend right there, Miss Gail Johnson, everybody.
Absolutely.
One of the first people I ever connected with when I started this whole thing so many years ago.
Still hanging in there with you too, no matter what you call yourself.
You're a trooper. You might be the longest lasting one ever, to be honest.
Really?
Maybe so.
Maybe. I remember Philadelphia Fit. Who remembers? No, Philadelphia Fit. Was that it?
Yeah, don't tell them that. They'll know about. They'll think I failed at something else.
No, 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 no. That just grew into something else. That grew into
Yeah,
Thrive. I remember all that.
yeah. There was no stopping it. It was that was a fun time. That one didn't go under, did it? We
No, it did not. And these others didn't because of anything you did. That just they
thank you.
were not of the Lord, but these are. This one
Thank
is.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Or they weren't necessarily in the right time. We'll put it that way. I'm not going to say they weren't of the Lord.
Amen. Amen. It's when I started the whole thing, I just had no marketing whatsoever. So I said, well, the whole thing started over there in the 3rd chapter of Revelation to the church at Philadelphia. I'll just call it Philadelphia Fit.
I never knew where that came from.
Yeah,
I knew it was biblical, but I didn't know where it came from.
yeah. Chrissy Hughes said that's got to go because people get from Philadelphia.
Speaking of those old days, I worked out this morning. Tim has tried his best to kill us, but I'm still here, so that's good.
All right. Yeah. He's still using kettlebells, throwing
Oh,
those
kettlebells and all those other things too.
torture devices.
Torture devices, that's right.
Good to have you this morning.
Thank you.
Hello, Beth Lane's got a student with her. Beth is a friend of mine and a teacher. And got a student. Tell the student I said hello. I can't do it anymore. I used to do a good Donald Duck. Yep, Gail, my mom remembers Philadelphia Fit. Yep, I remember
Your
Sasha.
mom may have been with you a little longer than me. I'm not sure. I could be your mom probably.
Yeah, I remember Sasha saying that she thought it was from Philadelphia when
Oh,
yeah,
not with that accent. I don't think so.
no. All right, everybody, we'll get started. This is our 4th lesson. This is really a 4-lesson series, and it's where we fill in the cracks of the fast track, the pre-records. The fast track offer a good foundation, a good goes over the basics real well, but it does miss a lot of the whys and the nicks and the crannies. So that's what we're doing. This will probably go 5 lessons. I don't figure I'll get done with it all today. I think we were starting to get into macros. I got to do a better job of taking notes, but I always go back to go forward. So we'll do a good recap and then get moving with this thing. It's good to have everybody today. Let me get to it. Oop. So those of you that prefer to read the materials, you got digital books right here. Then you got the program and a workbook. I think the workbook's good because you write stuff down and it's easier to remember. But here we've got our phase 1 book, and scrolling down and go to where we left off. I believe we were hitting it about where we get to macros. We talked about the fats and the water. Then we got to the food category. So we're going to be talking, and everybody hear me okay? Good volume. All right. So we're going to be talking about the macros, the categories, how they break down, why they're important. So when I started the program, I think, so here's a good lift off. When I started thinking about how do these foods break down? You know, that's the key. How do they break down in my body? Obviously, if I'm eating a peanut butter sandwich, I see one thing, but when it gets inside of me, there's chemical processes that are going on. What are those chemical processes that's breaking that sandwich down? So when I would have my peanut butter sandwich that I would take to work, it was white bread. The whiter the bread, the quicker we're dead. 2 slices of white bread, I found out, were breaking down in my body equivalent to what 18 teaspoons of sugar would, 18 to 30. And it was odd because if you look at white bread, my doctor back in the day, he had put me on a low-fat diet, and bread was on the program. I just had to stay away from fat. If you reduce fat, you're reducing calories because there's a lot more calories in a gram of fat than a gram of protein. So I thought I was doing well. But what I didn't understand, it's not all about it's not all about calories. It's about the chemical processes that take place when you eat that bread. So 18 to 30 teaspoons of sugar. What did that do to my body? It said no sugar, but why? Well, when your body sees that starch, basically white bread is nothing but endosperm. Everybody gets a kick out of when I say that, but it's endosperm. That's what it is. So any carbohydrate that's a derivative of any type of grain, it has a coating. It has the bran and the germ, and the good germ, GERM. So you've got the bran and the germ, and that coats the endosperm. Your body's trying to get to that endosperm. The nutrients are in the bran and the germ. And it takes a while for those chemical processes to break down the bran and the germ to get to the endosperm. But what we do in this country is we strip all of these foods, these grains, we strip them of the bran and the germ. We overly process them, and the body now does not have to work very hard to get to the endosperm, which translates to sugar and starch, and your blood sugar goes through the roof. If you just sit around and eat white bread and you don't have access to insulin or medication, you will die. That's how poisonous white bread is for you. So what did my body do to counteract this poison? My body, my pancreas, it's an internal pharmacy. It released insulin. Okay, now let's look at what insulin does. It's a hormone. What happens with the hormone? And I would just write this stuff down. Had notes and notes and notes where I would write down. I didn't go through a course back then. I would just do my research. Okay, because the Lord told me in my mindset, begin with the end in mind. And I know that's a Franklin Covey statement, but I remember very plainly, begin with the end in mind. What you see is not what you're really getting. So I looked and I said, okay, there's a hormone, it's insulin. What's good about it? What's bad about it? What's funny about it? Everything I could think of, I wrote down 3 things. What's good about it, what's bad about it, and what's funny about it. And this is how I learned to remember all the stuff. If it's not funny, we don't remember it. So the fat bus, right? So the insulin was the fat bus. Now, it's a hormone, and a lot of things happen that need to happen. Number 1, fat storage takes place very efficiently. Now, keep in mind, when we're consuming fat, it's already in the form of fat. There's no change. There's no mutation there. Fat is fat. So if you eat fat, it's in the form of fat, and it's easily captured and stored as a fat without any further chemical processes. It gets pushed right into the cell. So it's also a growth hormone. Insulin is a growth hormone. I know probably not many people here are into bodybuilding, but in the bodybuilding world, if you're in a bulking season, you're trying to bulk up, Carl probably knows what I'm talking about, you're trying to bulk, then you have to have good insulin sensitivity. You need levels of insulin that are inflated in order to even put on muscle. So like bodybuilders they'll shoot up with insulin. It's very dangerous, but they'll shoot up with growth hormone to get those humongous muscles. Side note, when women are concerned, like Gail works out all the time, she knows what I'm talking about. A lot of ladies that will show up at Pro Performance, initially they're worried about bulking up. They're not going to bulk up. Weight training does not bulk you up. It tones, it slenders, unless you're in a growth mode and you're eating a surplus of calories. Just a side note there. So the white bread is causing that insulin. Now I've got growth hormone. So if I'm trying to lose body fat, doesn't it stand to reason that if I'm in a growth mode with a growth hormone, that's going to be less efficient? It's going to be hard to decrease when I'm in an increase mode, right? And then in order for the body to eat more because it's in a growth phase, the appetite goes up. Now all of a sudden your ghrelin levels are accelerated and your leptin levels aren't accelerated. Leptin helps you control your appetite. Now you got problems. That's why we've been talking about 𝐬𝐬. That's why we've been talking about peak performance, so that we can better manage our ghrelin and leptin levels and get those switches firing properly again, because insulin disrupts all that. It's like me and Joy, if we're having a conversation, me and Chris were having a conversation. That's what you and food are doing. You're always having a conversation, and that food is turning on and off switches all the time. So when that insulin comes, you got accelerated appetite, you've got growth mode, you've got stopping your efficient fat burning, and you're doing something else that's very dangerous. You're destroying your mitochondria in the cell. These are the filaments in the cell that help convert fat to energy. So now we're even decreasing the amount of vital, healthy mitochondria we have. Thankfully, we have billions, but you cannot grow them back once the fat bus runs over them. You got a lot of them, but this process happens. And the higher levels of insulin you have, the more you're destroying them. The other thing is high levels of insulin are associated with chronic levels of inflammation. Now you have your LDL problem. Okay, so when we're talking about controlling insulin, it's probably the most important facet of our program. I had rather see somebody eat a surplus of calories and control insulin than eat in a calorie deficit and not control insulin. You need both. But how many of you have ever noticed this if you've been around the program for a while? If you're overeating Shibboleth approved foods, you gain weight at a slower rate than if you're eating a surplus of non-approved foods.
I am a living proof of that.
Yeah.
I am living proof of that.
Yeah, you'll always notice that. So for example, hope this is okay. We're probably going a little off fast track because I can't help myself. I just love to talk about this stuff. Helps me too. So we have fat cells. We're born with fat cells. Thanks to my mom, who's never been overweight, but our family history, it's genetic predisposition to have, she said big bone, but a lot of fat cells. So I was born with a set number of Jackson fat cells. Martin's, I don't think had that problem, but the Jacksons had that problem. So I'm born with this genetic predisposition to gain weight at an accelerated rate, but I only have so many fat cells. There's billions of them, but there's a set number. So as I don't know how to eat and insulin is shoving the fat in those cells, they all become full. And then what happens when we're at the Mexican restaurant and all of our available fat cells are full? We're not sitting at the Mexican restaurant eating the chips and the cheese dip, and we overeat and cheese dip drip down our eye. That's not happening because we overeat. No, your body manufactures more fat cells. Now that's a slow process, but it's starting to manufacture more garages. Your body's going, this woman is not going to stop eating. We're going to have to create more fat cells. This man is not going to stop. So we create more fat cells. And then when they start becoming full, the body creates more. You'll notice this too about weight loss and weight gain, that you will always hit a plateau even with weight gain. Notice that, like right now, for example, maybe this is the best way to explain it. I was over 300 pounds. If I stop following Shibboleth and I start eating Lay's potato chips instead of double bites, Pringles instead of Bonitos, and I'm overeating, I can be back up to 300 pounds in 2 months. People do not believe that. It is a fact, Jack. I can be right back to where I was in 2 months, easily. I will put it on that fast. Why? Because even though I lost the fat, all the fatty acids trapped in the fat cells and they're gone and the fat cell diminished, they're all still there. My body doesn't have to create anymore. Is that good stuff? Now think. Now, they're there, and now I start eating. I get off the plan. I'm stressed out. I'm anxious, or I'm just not focused. And I start putting on that weight. When I get back up to my high weight, then all of a sudden I'm going to hit a plateau. It will be slower weight gain, even if I'm eating the same number of calories, because my body has slowed down all of that in order to create more fat cells. Do you see what I'm saying? So now my body's creating more fat cells, and then I hit 5, 10 real quick, and then you'll hit a plateau, and then you'll kind of 1 or 2 pounds, and then boom, you'll go up another 10, because you're having to add to your body's available storage. If you look at life, is a numbers game, everyone. It is a numbers game. Everything's binary. So if you look at those of you into stock, you're into cryptocurrency, whatever it is, you'll notice that there's a resistance. So a stock will go up to its all-time high, and then it'll drop down. It'll go up to its all-time high, and it'll drop down. But if it ever breaks through that all-time high, it's off to the races. That's how your body works. That was a pretty good parallel if you get it. That's how your body works. You have to be really careful, because as you create those fat cells, you're not getting rid of them. So you got to stop the madness, right? That's where I was at mentally. So I'm looking at the peanut butter sandwich, and I'm like, this white bread is causing this insulin. It's causing this problem. 2 tablespoons of peanut butter, it's all fat. So
Wow.
it's mostly fat. Okay, it's mostly fat. Some protein, very little protein, mostly fat. So all these fat lipids are there, and then insulin is sucking that up and planting it in my available fat cells. Okay, that's what's happening. That's that process that's happening. And in addition to that, white bread and peanut butter is easy to digest. So it's not taking long to digest it at all, which means even more insulin. So I've got these high levels of insulin, and I'm storing the fat that's in the peanut butter. So I thought, okay, what can I do? Do I just eat the peanut butter by itself? Let me look into that. All right, so if I eat the peanut butter by itself, and there are other foods that have the same macronutrient profile, and I'll categorize them. If I eat it by itself, I'm not going to have a problem if I don't overeat it. The only way you will store fat in a fat cell is if you're eating a surplus of it. Your body will use it in the absence of carbohydrate very fast as an energy source. So I don't have any bread. Now, I'm in a calorie deficit today. I'm in a deep calorie deficit. Can y'all tell? I'm getting skinny. All right. So I'm in a calorie deficit, and I eat the 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. By the way, that is 6 teaspoons. That's good. That sounds better. So I eat 6 bites of peanut butter. I get a little bit of protein, about 12 grams of protein out of those 2 tablespoons. And it's 6 teaspoons. Yeah. So I get a little bit of the protein. Protein ain't going to really be used as an energy source because it's present with fat. The fat is very dense in energy. My body says, I'm in a calorie deficit. He just gave me some energy in the form of fat. Let me look around. Is there any MCT? Is there any carbohydrate? No. I'm going to use this fat instead of store it. And your body just dissipates it as heat and uses it as energy. So you don't have to worry about storing it. If I eat the whole jar of peanut butter, my body goes, wow, here's 2,000 calories of peanut butter. I'm going to need 300 or 400 calories of this the next few hours. I might as well store the rest of it. Your body's very intuitive. Okay. So I don't want to just eat peanut butter by itself. So I looked at all the things that I could eat with it and not have a problem. And it really boiled down to category 2, fibrous carbohydrate and protein. And then I looked at carbohydrate. So if you've got a carbohydrate that's fast digesting, how do we slow the digestion? We pair it with things, because we're eating it together, we pair it with things that cause the whole digestive process to slow down. And I thought, I'll never be able to eat another grilled cheese. I'll never be able to eat another peanut butter sandwich. I'll have to eat cheese and peanut butter by itself, that sounds like keto. I don't want to do keto again. My breath stunk. I had body odor. I was in ketosis. I was peeing on pea sticks, and then I was eating a stick of butter to get anybody ever done all that stuff to get the keto stick to turn black so that I'm inefficient fat burning. And then you build up a tolerance to it. Like when I started keto, I lost that 20, 30 pounds of muscle and fat. And I was like, wow, this is it. I figured it out. I can eat all this lard. And then all of a sudden I'd go to the bathroom and I'd pee on my keto stick and it wasn't turning black anymore. You build up a tolerance, you evolve. And I'm like, this isn't good. I was so determined to lose weight before I put all of it back on that time. I literally started eating sticks of butter to get in ketosis. And my breath was so stunk. My mama Martin said one time I was sniffing, Joy. I was sniffing myself. She said, "What's wrong, sonny boy?" And I said, "Mama, I stink." And she said, "Sonny boy, if you can smell yourself, other people been smelling you for days." And there's no telling how long I was stinking because I did keto so long. Didn't work for me. I didn't want to keep living like that. That's not a proper lifestyle. So I said, what am I going to do? And I literally did this right here, y'all. No joke. I hope that this doesn't sound like I'm embellishing. I'm still fascinated by it. I don't believe it was me. And then we've had literally dietitians and nutritionists look at this and go, "How did you come up with this?" And I go, "I don't know." Crying my eyes out, wanting to lose weight maybe. And I've always been fascinated with sports nutrition. I don't know. So I looked at calories and I thought, okay, 50 calories. That is negligible. It doesn't matter really what's in those 50 calories. I'm not going to get a huge insulin spike. Now, let me pause there. We tackle this in Faithfully Fit a lot. Okay. Insulin builds upon itself. Now, this is why I say don't even lick the cheese dust off a dirty Dorito. Is this good? Am I doing okay today? Are y'all good? Okay. So as I looked at calories, like 50 calories of anything, does that sound familiar? Does that sound like a component? Sounds like our condiment rule, doesn't it? 50 calories of anything is not going to spike your insulin to levels that are off the charts. It's just not going to do that. But Travis, you say, if I eat one little Hershey Kiss, that can affect me. Yes, let me show you why. Again, I'm getting too deep already for this class. This is why I can't get people to upgrade. I do it all here. All right, so check this out. So you've got level 10 insulin, you've got level 1 insulin, you've got level 5 insulin. In order to efficiently lose fat, I need my insulin levels down here, okay? So if I spike insulin with a hog trough meal and it's up here, I'm not going to be able to efficiently, it will be almost impossible to lose fat until we get these abated some. Now, blood sugar comes down fast and drastically in the presence of our medication or insulin. However, insulin stays up there and it tapers off. Okay, so this is your weekdays: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So insulin tapers off. And after about 2 days, it can get back down here if you don't mess it up, if you don't lick the cheese dust off a Dorito or bite a Dorito. So let's say that I'm tapering off and now I have 50 calories of sugar. You follow me? 50 calories. I don't need any protein and fiber in there. That's negligible. But remember, my insulin levels were already up here. So all of a sudden, they bumped back up here. It was just a little bump, but it was enough to keep me from getting back down here. And this is our lifestyle. This is what we're all doing wrong. I promise you, it's what we're doing wrong. It's not the celebratory days. It's those so-so okay days. You've got to do it right or it's wrong. I wish that were cold or hot, but thou art in the middle. Thou art lukewarm. Therefore, I'm going to regurgitate you out. So you're not going to get results when you're hanging out in the middle. You got it's either on or not. So after 2 days, if I'm sticking the red column, I'm following the system, I'm going to get them back down here. And then I'm going to be okay. And then another thing, I bet some of you've noticed this. If you've been around a long time, like maybe Gail, you have noticed this. After a while, you think you got it. You think you have fixed it, and you had a handful of Pringles, and the next day your weight was down. And then the next day you had just a bite of a hunky bar. You took one of them little wafer chocolate bars, Little Debbie's, and you had just a couple of bites. And the next day you was down again. And you said, I don't have to do this perfectly. But what happened, your insulin levels were so low, you were just bumping them up a little bit, right? Just a little bit. But guess what happens? You start getting off the system, you getting off the definitions, and you think you got this thing solved. And the next thing you know, you have that hog trough day, it's bumped back up here. Then all of a sudden, the bite of that Little Debbie's keeping you up here again. Does that make sense? So you got to have the standard. You got to have the standard. So what is our standard? Let's go back to this and keep explaining. So I've got 50 calories. I didn't need anything packaged with that 50 calories to slow down the blood sugar impact. It's not going to be but a bump. But then when I got up to 100 calories, the more energy I consume, the more protein and fiber I need surrounding it to slow down the breakdown. What is breakdown? How does the body break food down? The life and the health of the flesh is in the blood. Every time you eat, there's a certain amount of blood flow exercising that digestive system for those processes to take place. So if I have 100 calories, I'm going to need a little protein and fiber. Okay? Hence we start talking about extras and snacks. Then when I get up to 200, I'm going to need a little more protein and fiber. That's why it requires less protein and fiber for a snack episode than it does a meal episode. But then when I get over 200 and go up to 400, 500 calories in an episode, I'm going to need a lot more protein and fiber surrounding whatever carbs there are. Okay, so I'm looking around in the grocery store. I'm looking around. I'm like, I bet there's no breads. That's my negative attitude in play. I bet there's no breads. And I had these formulas written. I just wrote them up just like that. I said, I believe I'm going to need this much and this much and this much based upon what I read. And I said, oh, this double fiber wheat bread. They don't make it anymore, but double fiber wheat bread. It was the only one we had back then. We had one tortilla and one bread, and that was it. And I looked and I said, wait a minute. This meets the proper profile here. This has enough protein and the only bread. Protein and fiber to neutralize that insulin impact. In other words, there's enough whole grain or it's infused with enough fiber that I can slow down the blood sugar impact, and I can put it with my peanut butter and have a sandwich. I can have my cheese and I can put it with this bread and I can have my grilled cheese. So then when that started working for me and my blood sugar was much better controlled, I started looking at all the foods in that same capacity. And I just come up with my own island. Wasn't teaching it. I said, these are my foods, and if it ain't my food, I ain't eating it. And everything, I said, I got to have a pasta. I got to have a bread. I got to have a peanut butter. I got to have it, got to have it, got to have it. And back then, there was probably 200 foods I found. And it just kept growing. It kept growing and kept growing to where we've got more than 100 different chips, 100 different of this and that, and 100 different breads. It's amazing. There's never a need to eat anything off planet Shibboleth, even on a hog trough day, if you think about it. You've got because what we're looking for is the taste, the enjoyment. In this country, we're not eating for survival yet. We're eating for enjoyment a lot of the times. We need to eat to live and not live to eat. But still, we want to enjoy our food. Most of us here, we don't have many other addictions. We might have some other problems, but our main addiction is that food because that's where we get our pleasure. We're filling our voids, all these kind of things. But if I can focus on changing my thoughts, this tastes good and I lose weight, instead of this tastes good and I gain weight. Does that make sense? Now, Travis, where I get in trouble is the portions. Correct. That's still an issue because it may taste so good. It may taste so good that we want some extras. But here's the good news about packaging your carbohydrate with protein and fiber. It's more satisfying quicker. You can't eat as much even if you try. Even on those days when you're overeating, it's still going to be slower weight gain. So if you start packaging all that together and just start living the lifestyle, being consistent with it, in the beginning, 6 holidays a month or less, if all of your other days are truly perfect, you're going to have great success. After you get to maintenance, imagine 4 days on, 3 days off. Literally, my problem now is I don't want to take days off. I don't feel good, but my pants are falling down, and I'm not going to be 6'3" and go to a size 30. But that's how well the program works. Okay. So just consider all of that. You don't have to know it all and know why. Just trust the system and just know that if things are not working, it's because we have fallen off of the standard. Our perfect days truly aren't perfect. Now, I'm going to pause for a minute, then we'll get into the categories and how we partner to put things in the categories and for what reason. But are there any questions? Any questions at all? Things you've been wanting to know about that stuff? All right, we'll get back into the information. So in every category, there could have been, I could have put all foods in 3 categories. I could have put foods in 24 categories. Then it would have been really difficult. I probably used too many categories from a simplicity standpoint. But what happens is with 7 categories, there used to be 6. With 7 categories, some of these things aren't all created equal. So, for example, and some of this might be old, but lean proteins, egg whites, excuse me, chicken breast, all fish, 96% lean ground meat, fat-free cheese, tuna packed in water, not oil, low-fat cottage cheese or fat-free cottage cheese. Usually fat-free means high sugar, but not with cottage cheese. Some things aren't like that. Lean turkey dogs, 97% Hebrew National, boar's head, chicken, turkey, venison without the fat added, protein powders, protein shakes, even catfish, Canadian bacon, salmon. So when we're looking at that, these all have a very similar macro profile, but I bet you've already figured it out. If I'm looking for the best ones for weight loss, and I'm looking at that list, and again, I don't know which one the best one's going to be, all I got to do is look at its denseness. So for example, what will need more blood flow and what will be slower digesting in your digestive system? Chicken breast or fat-free cheese?
Chicken breast.
It's just intuitive, isn't it? I get way too much credit for this stuff. Okay. If I'm looking at,
I know it if it wasn't for you.
I just pulled intuitiveness out of all of us. So fish and cottage cheese, which one's going to require more blood flow? The fish. If it's pre-digested, processed, then it's going to require less blood flow. What are we talking about there? Well, if I go to the gym and I'm exercising, do I want more blood flow to my muscles or less? If I want them to tone, I want more, don't I? I want more blood flow. If I'm exercising, it's all about the blood flow, getting the nutrients to the muscle, making the muscle more tone, function better, all that good stuff. Same thing for your digestive system. Your digestive system is lean tissue. Think of it, even though it's not, think of it like muscle. Now, how many of us, because of our culture, have ended up with dietary habits of Kraft mac and cheese and other quick things and tuna helper and beef helper and all this stuff, where we're getting very little, getting the same calories, but we're getting very little blood flow to the digestive system. Can you see where your digestive system from a strength standpoint begins to atrophy? Okay, we got to get the blood flow back in there. So like if you've ever been with me and I go, okay, the sandwich that you had was good, but you're doing that 3 times a day and it's all approved, but you're going to start hitting a plateau if we don't mix it up, because with a grilled cheese sandwich, that's a lot less blood flow to the digestive system, even though you don't have a problem, you're fine. A lot less blood flow to the digestive system than having some grilled chicken and some broccoli. So you want to mix it up. So when you're looking at all those foods, it's okay to have low-fat cottage cheese. It's okay to have fat-free cottage cheese. But if you're thinking, how do I move faster? You want to go with the more dense ones that cause more blood flow. More blood flow means slower blood sugar rise. More blood flow means slower blood sugar elevation. Okay, so protein always slows down blood sugar elevation. If you'll visualize it like this, even though this isn't how it works. If you're eating double fiber wheat bread or approved bread, category 2 bread by itself, okay, you eat that, it's not a lot of blood flow, so it's going to get to the starch fairly quick, better than white bread, but it's going to get to that and your blood sugar is going to be raising up. But if I'm having a sandwich, it's almost like you took the bread and stuffed it in the middle of the chicken. And then you eat the chicken and the bread stuffed in because you're eating it at the same time. So your body's got to work extra hard to break all that down so you get that slower blood sugar rise. Another little thing that might help explain it. Let's say you're at a cookout and you have an approved hot dog, a category 2 bun, and a Hebrew National Frank. So you have those two together and they got watermelon. So you have your hot dog and you have your watermelon together. You're good. You had a 1, 2, 5. But you could get in trouble if you wait 45 minutes and then eat that watermelon. Do you see? You want it together. You're digesting it together. By the way, another little fun fact. What would be faster digesting? A Hebrew National Frank that's got 3 grams of starch, or a ballpark turkey frank that's approved that's got 10 grams of starch? Do you see the difference? That's why we rate the foods. And you'll find mistakes in there because we've had a lot of hands in the cookie jar in there, but it's pretty accurate. So if you're trying to choose the best ones, the best hot dog, the best ground, whatever, look at that weight loss meter. That's basically telling you that if it's a -2 or -3, we don't have a big issue. The only time that you see something processed that's got a low number is if the calories are so low and the protein's so high. I want you to eat it just so that you can have a good calorie deficit and get in the protein. Did I make any sense? I feel like I really got off the beaten path there, but you good? Everybody good with that? All right. So let's go back. So obviously these are the basics. There are hundreds and hundreds of category 1s and 2s, but these are all associated not with their thermic effect, but their macronutrient profile. So some are fast digesting, some are slow. But anytime we eat category 1, if we're not eating anything with it, for example, we don't have a problem. You're never going to look at the mirror and go, I got to back away from the low-fat cottage cheese. That's not what's causing the problem. It might be what you eat with it, but that's not causing the problem, okay? No problems with those. Then you've got your category 4. Jump to category 4 because we're still talking about primary protein sources. You've got pork, lean beef, like 93% lean. Another fun fact here. Let me share. A lot of people don't realize this. Some of you have been around a while and do, but it's worth noting. So you go get you some 93% ground beef. Here's the package, 1 pound package. Go get you a 1 pound package. This is 93. This is 96 lean, okay? You would think at 93% lean that 93% of this package would be protein, but it's not. At 93% lean, half of this package is lard, bad kind, filler fat. Comes from slaughterhouses all over the place for the most part. Nasty. Don't even know what you're getting. And this half over here is protein. Okay, why? If it's 93, are they lying? They're talking about by the weight of it, not by the calories in it. So if you take a 1 pound package, me and Mama I used to get on to her about this. She'd say, I just drained the fat off of it. So if it's 85% lean, that sounds pretty good, right? And we can do that on a line day, but 85% lean, see this line? Only this much of it is protein. Only that much. Everything else in that package, I promise you, look at it close next time. Everything else is fat. There are 9 calories in a gram of fat. There are only 4 in protein. So most of the weight of that product is coming from the protein side. And they're saying that 85% of the weight of this package is protein. They're not talking about the calories. 85% lean compared to 96% lean. You're talking about per 4 ounces here, you're talking about 270 calories roughly. Over here, you're talking about 100. You're getting 3 times the calories because you're eating so much fat. All right, so I'm going to pause there. How many of you knew that? That's disgusting, isn't it? Now, doesn't it take on the next time you go in there and you're like, I can save $1? Don't that make you think? Because you just might as well buy some butter. Butter's better for you than that filler fat that's in that package. So now we're looking at category 4s. You can have it, but you got to know that these are twice as dense in calories sometimes, depending on the fat amount. So pork, beef that's 93% lean. If any time that you're in doubt, even if it fits a category 1, but you're not sure, just treat it like a 4. Because as we get into combinations, you know that we don't put carbohydrate or fruit with a category 4 on a perfect day. So the fat is going to be used quickly, even if it's bad fat. It will be used quickly as an energy source. So think about that for a minute while the thought's on my mind. Think about that. So you take somebody that's eating that fatty meat and they're lean. And then you take somebody but they're very active. Then you take somebody sedentary and they're eating that same meat and they've got all kind of health problems. Well, the active person is eating the fat and they're using it up as an energy source quicker. This person over here, because they're not using a lot of energy, they end up storing a lot of that terrible, terrible bad fat. So you want to definitely, the more sedentary you are, actually, the more you want to stick with category 1s. You don't want those 4s. You don't want all that bad fat, because if you're not going through it and using it as an energy source, you're going to store it. You can store fat even without insulin. It's already in the form of fat. So if you overeat fat, that's why we have the portion component. You're going to store that fat. So when we get into combinations and it gets confusing, just remember what we're trying to do, everybody, is not pair carbohydrate with foods that have excess fat. That's all we're trying to do. Eliminate carbs and fruit with any food that has high levels of fat in it, even our category 4s. We looked at eggs and egg whites. So egg whites, there's no fat. Eggs have fat. Eggs are very good for you, but not if you're eating them with fruit. Carbohydrate. Now we're talking about carbohydrate. Most of the American diet is simple carbohydrate. Things like white bread, white rice, white flour, white pasta, chips, soda, fruit juice, donuts, cereals, pudding, cakes, ice cream, crackers, candy, cookies, fried foods. When we look at this list and we go, wow, I don't want to give any of that up. That's where we find what we call void replacements. And the void replacements we find fit our formulas so that they're called lesser evils. It's not that we should be eating them, but we're going to. So why not make allowances for that and do something that's a lesser evil that causes less insulin over the days, weeks, months, and year? So ice cream, when I have Carb Smart ice cream, it's not good for me. Sometimes I want my ice cream. So getting that less insulin production because of that ice cream that I eat, that's fantastic, because over the days, weeks, months, and years, my insulin levels are going to stay more abated. This isn't about huge changes. This is about pivots. Same thing for crackers. I love crackers. I love Ritz crackers. I don't eat them. So instead of eating a Ritz that shoots my blood sugar up higher, I have a fiber gourmet cracker. Instead of eating breaded and fried foods on a perfect day, I bread and flour it with an approved breading and flour. Instead of having fruit juice with all that sugar in it, yes, from time to time I'll have a lesser evil like Ocean Spray Diet that has sucralose in it because I'm not getting the insulin. Rice, I have all kind of rice replacements. Instead of white rice, one saucer of white rice is equivalent to 30 teaspoons of sugar. You don't have a short bus, you have a long bus. And then we're at the Japanese steakhouse and we want the white rice. And you say, do y'all have any long grain brown rice? And they go, no, put soy sauce on it and that'll make it brown. And you're like, no, I want the rice. I want the rice. It's never worth it, because you're talking about shooting your blood sugar up, insulin coming, and then you're putting yum sauce on it. They cooked it in a vegetable oil. No. When we're at home and having that stuff, then what we do is switch to riced cauliflower. We switch to miracle rice. We switch to fiber gourmet rice. We switch to quinoa. There's all kinds of rice substitutes. So when you're looking at that list, don't do the wrong behavior modification thought process. Don't say, I can't have this, because you're going to want it. You go, I find the void replacements. I love all those things, but they come with an invisible side item of fat gain. I also love these things, and they come with an invisible side item of weight loss. It's just about the pivot. That's it. All right, so I'm going to stop there. That's a lot of talking. We'll be able to finish up in our next lesson, and then we'll start another one for those people that want to go through it again. I'm different every time I do it, but the information is the same. Any questions? I will, Sally. Thank you. I appreciate it. I seen her dancing at me.
Travis, can I just say, yesterday we had to go out of town for a meeting and we went to a restaurant.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on one second. Sherry, let me get you to, now I had to mute everybody. Now, if you'll unmute, would you continue, please?
We went to the 8-track to eat, and I ordered the special. I could have swore she said grilled cod, black beans, and I didn't hear the rice, but she served it. Well, it was fried, so I ate my fish, half of it. I ate my black beans, but every time I looked at that rice, I remember that Faithfully Fit meeting, and I cannot eat rice no more. I said, Travis is in my head.
Good.
But I didn't touch it.
Awesome job. Awesome. And what I do is, in a situation like that, I love that stuff so much too. But what I do is, instead of saying I can't have something, if I'm at a Japanese steakhouse, yes, I love the rice with all that meat and stuff. And I just say to myself, instead of saying I'm missing that, I ask myself, okay, instead of pain, pleasure, pain, I want pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. So I go to that Japanese, do I like the chicken and the shrimp and the steak in the oil, even though it's a bad oil? I'm fine because I'm not having carbs. Do I like just eating that meat and bringing in my tortilla and putting it in my tortilla? Yeah, that's good too. And when I leave, I feel good about myself. No regret, no shame. So it's all about changing our thoughts, our thought processes. But good job. I'm proud of you. It's easier said than done, I know. Good job. Yeah, Chris says, ask for extra veggies. Yeah, perfect. Anybody else? And it doesn't have to be in regard, we're wrapping it up, so it doesn't have to be in regards to this class. If you have some question for personalization, we've got faith, nutrition, exercise, supplementation. We're always trying to improve upon those 4 areas.
Travis, is jasmine rice just as bad as white rice because it's still white?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it may be a hair better, but it's not much better. If we want the real thing, then we're looking for long grain brown rice because it'll still have the germ and the bran surrounding the endosperm.
Yeah, I've switched to brown. I just have a lot of jasmine left, so.
I would have it. I would have it on my holidays, but probably wouldn't on a perfect day. Unless it's a condiment portion. I think that's probably, keep in mind, anything can be a condiment. It doesn't mean it's an optimal condiment. And I'm thinking jasmine rice, you're probably looking at, 6 teaspoons of that. Like if you want to put it on a condiment or something of cooked jasmine rice. I mean, put it on a lean meat and a fibrous carb. If you just wanted it on there for texture. Problem with rice is it's hard to stop eating it. And it doesn't have a taste if you think about it. It's just texture, and it adopts and absorbs the flavors of whatever you're having with it. I have switched wholesale to rice cauliflower. I just don't need anything else. I will have the Fiber Gourmet fake rice, but I just as soon have rice cauliflower. Would you repeat the rice to sugar ration again? Rice to sugar. Maybe you're talking about like now rice has no sugar in it, but it metabolizes like sugar. You get the insulin spike. So a saucer of white rice can be equivalent to 30 teaspoons of sugar. I mean, you got a bust there. And then whatever you have with it. Now, keep in mind, here's another point that I forgot to bring out. There's just so much, right? That's why we have the other courses. I'll save that. We don't have enough time. I'll save. No, I won't. I'll go and tell you. So, so when you spike insulin, we're thinking when we eat that fat and have the insulin, we're storing the fat. Now, what happens? Why does it take 2 days to get back in EFB? Let's say that I had that bad combination for lunch, but for dinner, I have a right combination, but I have steak. What's still high? Insulin. And what is it going to grab until it gets down and out of the way?
Fat.
So you don't get back to efficiently burning that fat for 2 days of having perfect days. It's so much fun, isn't it?
It is.
I'm a weirdo, I guess. It's fascinating to me.
It's knowledge. Knowledge is power.
Amen. Anybody else? All right. So at noon, we've got our Faithfully Fit session. Obviously, we had some transition that started Monday. And I hate to keep making excuses, so I'm not going to make an excuse. But at the Faithfully Fit session, I'm going to cover a little bit about thermic effect instead of getting into a new course. We'll wait till next week. Hopefully, I can find some study time. I'm still working through the night. I did take a couple of nights off this week to get some sleep, so I'm feeling better. But appreciate everybody. We've had quite a few partners join us, and we really appreciate you. You're making a way for us, and our developer's being very patient with me right now, and I appreciate him too. Anybody else? Everybody good? All right. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day, Lord, our daily bread, and forgive us of our debts as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Thank y'all. Thank you all.
Have a good day.
Y'all too.